Hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today to witness our presentation, and special thanks to Angela and Edward for guiding us through this process as they're led that spearheaded this whole group through the ACC. My name is Nate Palumbo. I'm a junior here at Con, and I will be kicking off the presentation. But before we begin, I'd like all my partners to also introduce themselves as well.
I'm Nick Farnham. I'm a junior, government major and econ minor.
I'm Daigo. I'm a junior and I'm a ES major and econ minor.
I'm Colleen. I'm a junior and I'm an econ major.
I'm Veronica. I'm a sophomore and I'm also an econ major.
I'm Garrett. I'm a junior and I'm an econ major.
I'm Catherine. I'm a sophomore and I'm a econ psych major and finance minor.
I'm Elena. I'm a junior. I'm an ES major.
And I'm Henry and I'm an econ major.
All right, so great. So moving on, we had the amazing opportunity to work with the Alewife Cove Conservancy out of New London, Connecticut, who we really worked with this proposal with to get the Connecticut Sea Grant. And our project was titled Water and Soil Quality Testing for the Restoration of Alewife Cove. Okay, so as I said before, we partnered with the Alewife Cove Conservancy out of New London and had the chance to work with Edward and Angela. As a nonprofit organization, the primary goal of the ACC is to restore the spawning alewife herring fish to the Alewife Cove that you can see on the map here, through emphasizing various dredging and dam removal projects. For those who know where New London Beach is in New London, Alewife Cove, the mouth, could be found right on the tip of the beach, as you can see in the picture. Overall, the cove is an estuary of the Long Island Sound and has a crucial environment for the spawning alewife fish, osprey, birds, crabs, and other creatures. Unfortunately, as a result of various storms and water runoff, the health of the cove has deteriorated over the years as more alewife or less alewife return to the cove each year to spawn. For this reason, the Conservancy stands as an organization looking to restore, revitalize, and protect this cove. And as a group, we wanted to make this happen and took it upon ourselves to help the ACC reach their goals. And I'd also like to stress that that this cove is not just a important environmental area, but it's also an important place for the public of New London to enjoy relaxation, kayak, or just swim, and really offers opportunity for people of all ages and races to have fun. So before I pass the speaking over, there are three fundamental principles of the Alewife Cove Conservancy that I would like you all to keep in mind and know that guided us throughout this presentation. These principles are: one, to utilize ecosystem-based management to design solutions for the complex challenges that affect the Alewife Cove and the Long Island Sound. Two, to empower the youth and community to take action and protect our waters through volunteer participation in citizen science and volunteer efforts. And thirdly, to create a community of stewards that value, protect, and are inspired to preserve our vital natural resources. Overall, you can tell that this group is really determined to make a difference in the New London community and really improve the environment. From speaking with Edward, it's really clear this group has access to volunteers and the Connecticut state official contacts, whether it be the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, CTDEP, or Navy veterans. They really have everybody on their contact list to reach out to. So I will now be passing the presentation over to Nick Farnham and Daigo, who will be giving an overview of our project and a little bit history about the cove.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Nate. So our project overview, our project was really to obtain funding for preliminary dredging research. So this must be done to yield the highest environmental payoff for the cove. And what I mean by that is, so these pollutants come in from stormwater runoff, and stormwater runoff is any rain or water that is flown over an impervious surface. So these are places like pavement, parking lots, and roofs. This water then drains into soils and watersheds and collects into places like Alewife Cove. The reality is that this is a natural part of the hydrological cycle. Given the development that's around places like Alewife Cove, as humans we've spread our influence, and that has definitely affected places like Alewife Cove. So research for these pollutants is necessary because, take for example, sediment in the cove. If you were to dredge up these sediments and say heavy metals that are toxic are in the sediments, these would then be reintroduced back into the water column and potentially hurt the ecosystem and its inhabitants. So as part of our project, we're planning on doing a series of water and sediment quality tests. I won't bore you too much with the science of it all, but I put down a couple terms you might recognize. Chloride, nitrates, and metal concentrations are just a couple of the things that we are testing for. And I'll hand it over to Daigo for the ultimate goal.
So looking at the project and its timeline with a more long-term sense, the Alewife Cove Conservancy's ultimate goal is for the cove to dredge from Glenwood Avenue to its mouth on Long Island Sound. So this is also a massive undertaking that will most likely take years to complete. And by dredging the cove, this would ultimately restore the natural water depth, establish a more consistent and steady tidal flow, bringing fresh seawater with oxygen and lots of nutrients. And this will overall improve the health of the cove and revitalize its ecosystem. Next slide.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about the history of dredging in the cove. So in 1988, sorry, Waterford and New London came together to stabilize the entrance channel to the cove. This would ultimately increase tidal flow, and it did. You can see at the bottom of the screen towards the mouth, you can see a series of stone jetties that were put in place, and approximately 13,000 yards of sand and sediment were dredged from the inlet as well. All this did, in fact, increase channel depth and tidal flow. However, soon afterwards, sands began to accumulate at the mouth again, and the same problem persisted. And then later on in 1993, the two towns came back together and performed a study to determine more long-range engineering options for increasing the stability of this entrance channel to facilitate easier tidal flow. The report was done, everything was good, but nothing was ever done with the report. And to this day, nothing has been done. A little bit more recently, 2012, Hurricane Sandy hit New England. And you can see Harkness Beach on the left bottom portion of the picture. The storm surge from Hurricane Sandy moved a lot of Harkness Beach into Alewife Cove, the mouth up the river, and into the lagoon. And so this increased the issue as well and increased sedimentation in the area. You can actually see, I mean, the light colored sandy sedimentation all the way up the river portion of the cove. Next slide.
So the map shown here represents the proposed dredging path starting from Glenwood Avenue all the way to its mouth on Long Island Sound.
The grant that we chose to pursue is the Connecticut Sea Grant Development Award, which is a federal state partnership that's funded through the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration that also partners with the state of Connecticut itself. It's housed through the University of Connecticut, and as you can see, the mission is listed there. It aligns with the ACC's principles of valuing, protecting, and preserving natural resources, and to find solutions for the challenges that this New London community has faced along with that. This grant specifically aims to fund projects that involve pilot research studies, which is what we are hoping to receive. It also includes extension or educational projects, publications, and similar activities. When doing our research for the grant that we wanted to choose, we found an example of a project that this grant has actually funded, which was a UConn student that was able to receive funding for a project on Alewife colonization. The funding of this grant usually ranges from $200 to $5,000, and it is accepted on a rolling basis. When looking at this grant's specific goals and outcomes, we found multiple relations to the project that we are hoping to receive funding for. As you can see on the bottom left portion of this slide, it represents their first goal, which focuses on the balanced use, conservation, and management of habitats, species, and ecosystems. Our main outcome from this objective would be that we would get funding to collect information on the water and soil quality and its impacts on the Alewife Cove, along with the marine ecosystem it contains. And then if you look at the bottom right portion of this slide, it represents their focus on the changing climate and environment and how resilient communities have faced it, which includes the Alewife Cove. And the main outcome from this goal would be that the information and intensive work will lead to the ability of adapting to the effects of the changing water quality found in the Alewife Cove. So this slide lists out the proposal requirements that we will have to go through in order to receive the grant. As the presentation continues, we will go through which ones we have completed and which ones we haven't, but just to run through them quickly, there's the preliminary information, which includes the project title, affiliates, and contact information for them to reach out to us. You need background and the need for funding, which we thoroughly explained. We need the relevance to the CTSG objectives that they have, the goals of our project, the approach and methodology of our project, the expected results and benefits, the budget, the data management plan, and the NEPA environmental compliance questionnaire. Now, Catherine is going to run through our budget plan.
Sorry, one sec. My screen's like frozen. All right. Hello, I investigated the budget aspect of this project through looking at different testing types that need to be done before dredging. As a group, we research how water gets contaminated according to the Connecticut Watershed Response Plan for a pervish cover. Stormwater tends to be like the major source of impairment to water quality. As you can see above, there's two tables listed. York Analytical Laboratories has provided a pricing quote for testing parameters in relation to stormwater runoff. I listed two tables to symbolize that the budget framework of this project is still ongoing. As a group, we feel that having a wide variety of testing types, ones that incorporated stormwater runoff, seawater, and beach soil testing is key to leading a better dredging plan for the cove. As our methodology is still in the works and in progress, we are working to get price quotes on sediment and water quality testing. The steep budget, as Colleen has stated, is $250 to $5,000. I drew up two scenarios. One, as you can see on the left table, with 3 test types per parameter associated with stormwater runoff, and another on the right with 5 tests per parameter associated with stormwater runoff. In the left table, you can see that there's $3,400 left over that can be allocated to other testing types. In the right table, you can see that there's $2,300 that can be allocated to other testing types. We are still considering other funds to be used for sediment and water quality testing, so calculating the number of tests for stormwater runoff is still in progress. We are currently in communication with microbac laboratories associated with water quality testing and Phoenix Environmental Laboratories who conduct sediment-based testing. We have also looked at a volunteer testing manual for measuring toxicity in estuaries from the EPA that outlines what measures need to be taken. We will follow the guidance of these laboratories to ensure everything is done properly. ACC has a great team with a lot of influence, and we hope to utilize this. They are in constant communication with people like Stephen Geppard, who is at Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection. Edward himself describes Stephen as a king of rivers in Connecticut. Our partners are also in contact with we're in contact with the country's top dredgers experts. Utilizing these resources at ACC will help bring together the implementation of this project. Volunteers can assist with the collection of samples, and we will be communicating with the laboratories so that we have the necessary knowledge, and the ACC influences to make securing volunteers possible. We will continue researching what other laboratories will provide in terms of testing types. This will lead us to finalize our budget, and once we receive all pricing quotes of all types, we can do this. All in all, the best dredging plan, we believe, will have an assortment of testing types.
So the expected results from the initial research funded by this grant include that we'll be gaining valuable scientific data about the water quality, soil conditions, and nutrients present in Alewife Cove. Up until the degradation from Hurricane Sandy, the alewives have utilized the cove as a spawning hotspot. And there's been minimal research done on the cove in the past, and we saw effects of the 1988 dredging. The research study that came out of that highlighted environmental benefits of dredging, and our role in the ACC's goal is getting a pilot research study done, which will get us basic assessment of the environmental quality in the cove. And this will be the initial step and will hopefully bring about a larger research study on the cove. And this will grow our available knowledge of the cove and make any physical altercations in the cove more feasible. Next slide.
Yeah, I'm trying. It's frozen. 1 sec. There we go.
Great, thanks. So I'm going to be talking about the value to the community in restoring the cove. So the community effects of storm runoff water and quality, and I'm going to be explaining why water quality matters in the cove. So we talked about before, when storm water trails off into the cove, it brings pollutants from the parking lots and buildings into the cove. And this drastically reduces the water quality and introduces foreign sediment and substances into the water. It is important to maintain water quality because organisms affected by polluted waters will suffer acute toxicity, which results in their premature death. By monitoring and removing these toxins, the cove will be able to maintain healthy wildlife. As I talked about, polluted waters damage life inside as well as outside of the cove. The pollution of water can lead to biological amplification. Biological amplification is the concentration of movement of a substance as it goes up the food chain. So the polluted water will affect plankton, which then affects small fish. As the larger fish eat the smaller fish, the large fish then consume the toxins that have been carried from the plankton. These toxins will continue to be passed up and eventually find its way into fish-eating birds until the toxins are removed from the water entirely. This cycle means pollution from the smallest organism in the water can affect the New London community. And then contaminated sediments may contain unusually high levels of metal due to the pollution from storm water runoff. Heavy metals in the cove can lead to negative health effects on the community that relies on the fish for food. High metal concentration can lead to adverse effects on the central nervous system, loss of feeling, and severe neurological impairment. Testing the water will help us find out what is going into our marine food sources to get a better idea of contamination. We are trying to get money for monitoring the presence of toxins. This provides information on possible effects to the estuary's community structure and populations. Human health is another important reason for monitoring. Bottom-dwelling organisms like shellfish can accumulate these metals and chemicals in their tissues, making them a potential risk to human health when consumed. With the money from our grant, we will be able to test the water's metal levels and be able to assess the safety for the community. The fish in the cove make up a part of New London community, and it is important to keep the cove alive and well in order to preserve the life surrounding it.
So we already established why it's so essential to have a good water quality in the cove, and it really having a good water quality ensures that there's going to be a good alewife population. So I'm just going to go through all the benefits of having a solid alewife population. So alewife fish have a cultural value for Northeast towns. The alewife herring runs bring people together as they go to the streams and watch the fish swim up the rivers. So reestablishing a healthy ecosystem will give future generations this opportunity to engage in wildlife. And as as we've stated, Alewife Cove is located at the main spot of recreation for New London. So making sure this recreational hotspot has a thriving natural ecosystem is very important. The financial benefits of Alewife. So restoring Alewife boosts the activity and sales of small scale fisheries. This reduces the reliance on the global fishing industry, which has done a lot of harm to not only the environment, but local culture. Fish licensing provides funds that can go towards river restoration, management of fisheries, and improved city infrastructure. And the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection has actually outlawed alewife harvesting each year since 2002, citing no improvement to the population like year after year. So if we move towards a healthy alewife population in New London, the town could benefit from direct revenue from fish licensing, job creation through seasonal harvesting jobs, and tourism. Ecologically speaking, alewife bring improved water quality. They consume zooplankton, which prevents algae blooms. And being a forage species, everything eats alewives. So improvements to the alewife population lead to improvements in codfish and haddock populations. Alewife restoration also brings back osprey and blue herons because they consume the fish as well. And this draws in bird watchers, which is another tier. So we're really getting a sense of the positive feedback loop that's created when you improve the alewife population. And an improvement to this crucial fish population has an effect on so many tiers of not only the ecosystem, but the community. So assessing the level of contamination in the cove can provide some initial steps towards making the restoration of alewife a reality. And like Veronica mentioned, we see how everything in the ecosystem is connected, especially when animals are being affected by pollutants. So understanding the extent of contamination in the cove can point us in the right direction to reestablish the alewife presence.
So as I mentioned before, these are the requirements for the grant proposal that we are hoping to receive. We have completed all of the ones that are labeled green, as you can see. 2 of them are in progress, which is the approach and methodology, along with the budget, which is because we still need to determine a lab that we want to have the research completed with. And then the other 2, data management plan and the NEPA questionnaire, will be incomplete until we actually receive the funding for the project.
So I know we're out of time, but on behalf of the whole group, I just want to thank Edward and Angela for all of their work at the Conservancy, as well as for giving us the opportunity to help out with this amazing project. So thank you.
Excellent. Well, wonderful job, everyone. If we could give them a round of applause for that really impressive presentation. I'm gonna not spend too much time on that because we have limited time for questions and answers. So I'm gonna put the feedback form loop in, but I'm gonna stop talking and let you guys ask the group direct questions and answers.
Well, this is Edward Lamora. I want to thank the group for an excellent job. They really were like laser guided heat-seeking missiles on getting to the point of what we needed to do. And they were on time, they were on purpose, they were professional, they carried themselves eloquently. I'm very appreciative of this information. I hope we can get a copy of this presentation, but it was a great pleasure to work with you all, and I'm sure if Angela, my colleague's on the phone, she would say the same. Angela, are you there?
I am. Yeah, they did a great job. And I would definitely like to say that this is all their original work. I like to guide, we suggest, and then they went out, they went out hard and they did it all. Thanks. Good job.
And you know, like I say in the quote there, the future generations are going to be thankful to you for doing this. We all have to row the boat in the same direction. We get one planet. This is it. You guys are the future. You're learning a lot on this project. Alewife Cove thanks you. Alewife Cove Conservancy thanks you. The Alewife Fish thank you. The planet thanks you. Great job, and thank you, Professor.
Do we have a question? I would just like to potentially speak a bit to this group. I know that there are points and times when I feel like the students felt overwhelmed with the enthusiastic of Alewife Cove Conservancy. And I know that there's parts when I'm sure they were struggling a lot. And it was, as an instructor, I was reading reports of what was happening, but I wasn't responding in real time. And I just think it's really impressive kind of grit that this group has demonstrated. And I'm super impressed with the results. So, I mean, that's true of every group, but in particular, I know that this group themselves probably experienced some dark moments, but they got through it really, really well.
Well, this group needs to understand one thing. Like Ralph Waldo Emerson said, extraordinary people are ordinary people caught on fire with a burning desire and purpose. And also, enthusiasm is the raw advanced stage of success. So ramp it up, kids.